The New Nomos podcast is a call for a new beginning, a call for the new men and the new women that yearn to be truly free, a call for us to fulfill our destiny, a call for a new Nomos on the earth. Welcome to the New Nomos podcast. I'm Abdallah Datan, inviting you to join me on this journey of discovery, to define what the New Nomos is and what we need to get there. A few weeks ago, I was introduced to Feraidoon Mojadedi. He's a community leader, entrepreneur, and scholar with a speciality on Rumi and the great Farsi poets. And so I was excited to explore the life of Rumi and his works in a little bit more detail. But of course, for a man who was so vast, I wouldn't even say that this episode is scratching at the surface. With that said, it cuts between the life of Rumi, how Ustad Feraidoon came to fall in love with poetry, and in particular the works of Rumi, all alongside snippets of Rumi's poetry recited in the Farsi. So, without further ado, I present to you episode 29, A Little Touch of Rumi in the Night.
Mawlana Rumi was born in Balkh, Afghanistan in 1207. During the just the beginning of the Mongol invasion, towards Persia in a few years. So by the time he was 12, he and his father, his mom and his sister and the family left from Balkh to make the pilgrimage. So they went from Balkh to what is modern day Persia, which was back then, it was the Khorasan. And they went through Nishapur, where they met some of the great scholars like Attar al-Nishapuri, the great Persian poet, who really inspired Mawlana Rumi and has a lot of poem in the praise of Attar. And then from there, they went to Iraq and then Damascus, and then they ended up doing the pilgrimage in Hijaz, what is modern day Saudi Arabia. And then after the pilgrimage, they went to a place called Karaman, and that's where they actually resided, which is in Turkey. They stayed there for a while until Mawlana was about 18 years old. Rumi's mother actually dies in Karaman. And then they moved from Karaman to what's known as Konya now. Konya was actually the capital in that time, the capital of the Seljuk Empire. People who watched the Ertugrul show. In that show, they do talk about, the empire being in Konya of the Seljuk, which runs about the same era of Mawlana Rumi. So they end up in Konya because of Mawlana Rumi's father. His father was a very unique type of human being. He was kind of like, he had this encyclopedic memory and an amazing scholar. Like they used to call him, like what we have in the modern day, we have Sheikh al-Shuyukh, the Sheikh of the scholars. He was called Sultan al-Ulama, the Sultan of the scholars. That his dars was not just for the general public, but a lot of the scholars would come and study under him. And this is based on the title that was given to him. Many of the scholars there, and one night they had this dream that he is the Sultan of the scholars, and they were talking. But he was just, for me personally, one of the things really struck me about Mawlana Rumi, that he was a genius young man. Like he was a gifted, first-rate intellect, just gifted human being. But one of the things that he had, that had he not have that with him, I don't think that he would become who he is, was his father. Because to have a scholar like Sultan Bahauddin, he wasn't just a scholar. imagine at a time that libraries are scarce, dictionaries are like, you have to hand copy them. Books are all hand copied. It's not like we don't have printing press and where a book is printed in thousands of copies or millions of copies. Each one is handwritten, each book. At that time, to have somebody who has all these books memorized and a master of the Arabic language, a master of Persian language, and any question he has, he can just ask him. It's kind of like having like an encyclopedia of knowledge traveling with him all the time. So that was a really one of the great advantage of Mawlana Rumi, that he had a father like that who could just give him whatever question he had, he could answer it for him and give him the resources. So they end up in Konya. There was the amazing Khalifa at that time, Alauddin Qiqabad, who was really a beautiful man who loved knowledge, who loved scholars and loved the deen. So he invited Mawlana Rumi's father to come to Konya and stay there and become the head of the Seljuk Empire's chair of education. And so he goes there and they really honor him. And this is one of the things that people don't understand, that our ulama, they always worked with the sultans, because they knew if the sultans were righteous and good, then everybody under them would feel at peace and at ease. But if the sultans are oppressors and the sultans are ignorant, then everybody, the whole ummah, will suffer from them. So they actually work with them because the potential of them being good is just that idea that they can influence them. They didn't want to throw that away. So he worked with them and then they built that beautiful mosque in Konya, Alauddin Qiqabad Mosque. Those who have gone to Konya, usually when I take the journey to Konya with the group, we go to Mawlana Rumi first, and then we go walk to Shams, and then we walk to Alauddin Qiqabad Mosque. It's all in one road, but it's just a beautiful mosque he built. One of the love that he had for the deen, and this is where the subtleties of Islam really struck you. Like he got a soil, this pure, beautiful soil, and brought it in the city center, and then built this high platform from the dirt, and then said, build a mosque on top of it. So now when you go, you take like easily like 50, 60 steps to get to the top, and then there's the mosque. Just elevating the house of God, just having that love and that adab with the mosque. And it has to be above the city, above everybody who is living in the city. Alauddin Qiqabad, basically, he told Mawlana Rumi's father that whatever you want, we will do. Just stay here, teach, tell us what to do. And that's what he did. And Mawlana, when he turned 25, his father died, and he's buried there in Konya, right next to where Mawlana Rumi is buried. So then at age 25, he becomes the chair of Islamic education of the Seljuk Empire. So it was not a hereditary maqam that they give him, oh, your father was there, now you take it. No, it was a qualitative maqam. It was a maqam based on qualification. So he actually was the most qualified person to have this job. So just to put it in perspective, here's a young man, 25 years old, and a lot of 25 years old nowadays they're playing like video games and just chilling, right? 25 years old, he become the chair of education of an empire of Islam, not of a university, of a college, of a mosque, of the Muslim world. So he was really one of the unique characters in terms of just the amount of knowledge he had.
So when did you first come across Rumi?
We grew up in Afghanistan was kind of like one of the national pastime of Afghanistan is poetry. It's like there's not a household that there's not books of poetry, that some people don't have hundreds of lines memorized. They use a poem on a regular, like You have a cup of tea, and if it tastes good, you have a line of poetry for it. If it doesn't taste good, you have a line of poetry for it. You have a proverb for a good food. You have a proverb for the guy who there's the language is just filled with proverbs and poetry. So it's constantly used, and that becomes kind of like the fabric of your life, where these things, you see the wisdom in the poetry. So from a young age, you see the wisdom in poetry. I remember, when playing chess, when we were like, I was a little kid, and then like my brothers and they would play chess, because this is one of the games that they play in Afghanistan. Seriously, they play it. And then there's all these stories about chess that we used to memorize, and poems, and then we used to recite those poems as a cheat notes to our friends or our brothers, so they would know in the poem I'm saying, hey, move the horse, and don't, it's kind of like amazing stuff that you just learn. It's like, should he move the horse? And then you have a poem for that. Don't move the horse because you're going to lose, da, da, da. But it's a poem that the other person can't say they cheated. Say, I just recited a poem, right? So there are a lot of stuff like that you grew up with. But for me, I honestly didn't know like what it meant. I only saw the form of the poetry, and it was really attractive. The form was very beautiful. I give you an example. One of my favorite poems from the Diwan al-Shams of Mawlana Rumi is called Man Ghulam Qamaram. Qamar is a name, in Persia they call it Qamar Gul. There's a famous name, like people name their daughters like Qamar Gul, or Qamar Jan, or it's a name. And everybody thinks that this is about a girl named Qamar. Like that's the poem. Man ghulam qamaram ghayr qamar hich magu. Pishi man jo sokhane sham o shakar hich magu. Rumi says, I'm the slave of Qamar. I don't want to hear any story about anybody except my Qamar, because the story of Qamar is like sweet like sugar, and it's illuminated like the candle. It brightened my day, and it sweetened my mouth just to hear the story of Qamar, right? And then he has this whole dialogue with love about Qamar. The whole dialogue is he's talking to love, right? And then Dush divana shudam ishq maro dido begoft Amadam na Ramazan joma madar hich magu. In Rumi says, I went mad with the love of this Qamar, and I didn't know what to do. I was losing my sanity. And then love came to the rescue. He said, I'm here. Relax. Don't go mad. Don't rip your clothes. Don't go crazy. I'm here. Relax. Just don't say anything. Because one of the reasons why this poem, each line ends with don't say anything, because there's no way you can articulate love. It's impossible. Because love is beyond articulation. It's beyond words. Love is when you're standing in front of the beloved and you don't have anything to say, and yet thousands of books are just printed from your looks. It's just pouring from your face, lines of poetry and books, but you can't articulate it. Right? Because the silence of lovers is libraries of books of love. So this is where I was like, who's this Qamar? Like, I wanted to know who Qamar is, and the Mawlana Rumi's Qamar. Because I read this poem and I'm like melting down. And I'm like, okay, who is this Qamar? And now I get to this line where he says, Goftam in Rui Ferishtast Ajab. Yo Basharas. I said, is this Qamar of mine? Is this Qamar an angel or a human? And I have to think about, why would he say that? Is this Qamar a human or an angel? Goft in ghayri farishtas to bashar, hich mago. And then love answers, says, listen, this one that you fell in love with is beyond human and angels. And then I realized he's in love with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's one of his names. He's like the full moon. That's the whole poem. And then it all started making sense. I'm like, oh my God, he's in love with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Mm.
And who is love that's answering him? It's Allah that's answering his questions.
Mm.
Allah is the one. I'm here. I'm with you. Allah is with you all the time. I will make this happen for you. You fell in love with my beloved. Don't worry. You're on the right path. You haven't lost your sanity. You're good. You haven't lost your sanity. And then this is when he said, because when Shams came into his life, to Mawlana Rumi's life, Rumi thought that everything that he knew up to now is flipped upside down. Right? گفتم این چیست بگو زیر و زبر خواهم شد. He said, oh Shams, what just happened to me? You flipped me upside down. What just happened? I got flipped upside down. گفت می باش چنین زیر و زبر هیچ مگو. And then the answer comes. He said, no. You were living your entire life upside down. I just turned you right side up.
Mm.
But don't say anything. Don't say a word. Stay like this. If you remain like this, everything will be perfect. It might look fuzzy at the beginning because of your previous life, but now if you say that, you will see that everything is perfectly as they are, right? So a lot of these poetry is in the love of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, love of Allah, and in the love of it's the divine love. But as we grew up, we started understanding this. But as little kids memorizing these age 5 and 6 and 7, 8 and 9, 10, we actually thought it was about girls and it was about music and it was about dancing, about sama and about, but then we realized that they're all symbolism. And those symbolism, it unveils itself as you start learning about life, as you start reading and as you start, aging with life.
But isn't that, I find that a lot of Rumi is understood in the West in that way.
Yes and no. And honestly, I think that there are a lot of people like Anne-Marie Schimmel, the great German translator of Rumi, and really someone that I think she was a master of Mawlana Rumi in the past century. I don't think anybody can even come close to her understanding, because she spoke, her Farsi she was at a very high level of Farsi and English, German, and Arabic, and in Urdu. So she was fluent in all 5 languages and more languages, but those are the ones that she used for mostly the Urdu, the Farsi. She did a nice book on Iqbal as well, and in quite a few books on Shams and Rumi, translated a lot of works. And I'm in line with Anne-Marie Schimmel's school, so of Mawlana Rumi. I think that she got it, the meaning. Nicholson got it. A lot of people got it. But what we are seeing, a lot of, people don't read like, Nicholson because, it's too academic and dry. Yeah, it is academic. It is dry. But he tried it. He tried very hard to get the meanings translated into these verses. But a lot of the people who use like Coleman Barks, and Coleman Barks is great. I love Coleman Barks, and he has done a great service for Islam, for the Muslims, that no way we could have done it. I don't think that 1,000 of us could have done what Coleman Barks has done. He has popularized Rumi, that everybody knows him in the West. And Allah just give that tawfiq to people, and he is a man of mysteries and secrets. So Allah preserve him and give him tawfiq to do more khidmah. But I think a lot of the people, because the level of people in the West, that most of the stuff that we see is through social media. Many of the social media are age 12 to like 20. That's most of, TikTok is all under the age of 15, most of them. Like literally, it's designed for kids under the age of 15, the whole thing. Yeah, you do have some people, the older people here and there, but we're talking about, probably like 70% of them are under the age of 15. So Instagram, the same thing. It's all young people, right? So social media starts with young people, right? But as the older people get on social media, the young people leave. Like everybody, all the youngsters were on Facebook, and then all these old people started learning about Facebook. They came to Facebook. All the youngsters, they left to Instagram, and then all the older people, they follow them on Instagram, and then they left to Snapchat, and now they're leaving to TikTok. So it's social media is a young person's life, right? That's where the society has got all these young people, occupied with social media, and so for them, if you have a line with all these meaning and symbolism, they can't understand. Like they know, what are you talking about? It's a 15-year-old kid. When I was 15, if you would have told me all this, I said, man, you're crazy. No, it's about this girl. It's not about, what are you talking about? No, either why can't he say, if it was about the Prophet, why could he say Muhammad? Why could you mention his name? But it's symbolism, brother. No, come on, man. That's how I mean, when I was I remember 13, 14, I used to read these lines, and I always thought it was about a girl. I never thought it was about the Prophet. So, but the thing is that a lot of these people, they only can understand, those little quotes. When we put a little quote on the Instagram, Rumi said that which you're seeking is seeking you. They understand that, right? But if you do a commentary at that, they wouldn't understand it. So for me, it's kind of like, it's good because Rumi is a household name. Muhammad Jalaluddin. People say, I love Rumi. They love a guy named Muhammad Jalaluddin, so which is nice. And then it gets it ready for the future, that we should, as Muslims, do more commentaries in English, where when they're ready, when this 15, 16-year-old who are coding, putting a little meme or this and that on social media, then when they're in college, they're like, well, what does that really mean? Then when the symbolism comes, we have something for them that they can actually say, oh, this is what it means. Okay. So they plot the land for us, right, and planted the seed. All we have to do is water it. That's all, and it will grow.
Beautiful, beautiful. You mentioned Rumi's meeting with Shams Tabriz and putting him the right way up. At what point in his life did they meet?
So Shams Tabriz came into Mawlana Rumi's life when Mawlana Rumi was 38 years old. And during that time, he went through a lot. Obviously, he lost his mom, he lost his dad. He became the chair of the Islamic education of Seljuk Empire at age 25. And then at age about 28, 29, he meets Muhaqqiq Tarmizi, who was these are people who, in everybody's life, you have people that come and change your life. But all of the changes are getting you to get ready for the big change, right? It's kind of like you start, Sha'ban comes and you start fasting a day here, a day there to get ready for Ramadan, right? You're fasting, but you're not fasting like Ramadan, 30 days in a row, 29 days. So these are all to get us ready, right? A lot of these people, like his father was there to get him ready for the Shams. His mom, his father, and then Nusayba, the maid servant that they had, who had a big impact on Mawlana Rumi in Balkh. All of them were like these little teachers that came in and kind of molded him and got him ready to this great meeting with Shamsuddin Tabrizi. So when Muhaqqiq Tirmidhi comes, Shams Tabriz and Muhaqqiq Tirmidhi is two different names and people. Muhaqqiq Tirmidhi was the student of Mawlana Rumi's father, who remained in Balkh when they moved. When Mawlana Rumi and his father left Persia, the army of Genghis Khan has reached Persia and start just taking over. From Nishapur, they killed one of the teachers that Mawlana Rumi met, Feraidoon Attar. So they just went through and they got to Balkh and they slaughtered a lot of people in Balkh. So Muhaqqiq Tirmidhi was on the survival of the Balkh massacre. Bahauddin Walad, Mawlana Rumi's father, was the head of the Seljuk Empire's chair of education. Obviously, this word goes around the world that, okay, the chair of education is so-and-so. So he finds out about it, and he sets out on a journey to go to to be with his sheikh. And so he comes to Konya, and then when he arrives there, it's a couple of years after the death of Mawlana Rumi's father. So he says, well, my sheikh, let's say he passed away. So in any case, he comes and then he says to Mawlana Rumi, and this is one of we have a tradition in Islam and within the Persian, in the Indians and the Arabs, they all have it. It's a concept of wafa, this faithfulness, and the concept of amana. If you give somebody a trust, they would die keeping that trust, making sure it's secure and protected in order to return back to you. And the people have lost their lives protecting other people's wealth, right? So he comes in, he said, listen, I came to study with my teacher, but he's not here. But I want to give you what I learned from him, because it was an amana from him to me, so I want to pass it back to you. So he started teaching him everything that he learned from his father. But he sees that this man is not an ordinary person. He's way ahead of the curve. And his intellect worked much faster. So he said, whoa. After a couple of years with him, he sends him. He said, you have to go to Damascus and study there. This is not a place for you. You got to get out. Now, this is where Mawlana Rumi is separated from everybody else. Now, imagine this. You're the chair of Islamic education, not chair of Azhar or Qarwiyin or Stanford or Berkeley. No, the chair of Islamic education of the Muslim world, right? So you're the most learned person on the planet. Everybody's coming to you. They say his classes, people used to pay money so other people leave so they can take their spot and sit in the class. And this is thousands of people. And I've been in that hall where he teaches class at the Al-Adin Kiqabat Mosque. And that thousands of people fit in this hall. They said it was jam-packed. People used to come from other nations to sit at Rumi's classes. This is before Shams al-Tabriz, because it was just an amazing intellect, aqidah, fiqh, grammar, poetry, whatever language, whatever science there was, he was a master of it. So here's his father's student tells him, no, you got to go to Damascus and learn. He doesn't say, what are you talking about? Me? Like, it's humiliating. I'm the chair of Islamic education of the Muslim world. You want me to go? Who am I going to learn from? I'm like supposed to be the most learned person. He doesn't ask that question. He says that you're a student of my father. You're just like my father. Whatever you say, I'll do. So he sets out on this journey and goes to Damascus. And Damascus was a safe haven of all of the scholars, because Iraq was destroyed, Persia was destroyed, Nishapur was destroyed, Balkh was destroyed. All of these center of learning, Baghdad everybody fled, and they all went to Halab. They were all there. So you had scholars of grammar, scholars of aqidah, scholars of sarf and nahu and Persian literature and any science that you can think about, hadith and Quran and tafsir. They were all there. So he sent him to the hub, right? Just to take everything. So he spent a few years in Halab, and he basically took the knowledge of all these masters, and then he came back. And then so when he came back, that's when Shams al-Tabriz came in. So Mawlana Rumi was about 38 years old. Shams walks into to Konya, and that's when his life gets right side up.
So that's after his journey. So he's come back to Konya when Shams al-Tabriz.
Yeah, so he goes to Damascus. He spent 4 years there. Some narration even longer, 5 years, some narration up to 7 years. He studied there. As a matter of fact, there's a very interesting story that is in about this meeting, because when Shams Tabriz comes in and meets Mawlana Rumi, which is really Maraj al-Bahrain, they call it, the meeting of the two oceans. he comes in and he changes his life. He takes, see, the thing with Mawlana Rumi, you have to know there's three knowledges. Knowledge is divided into three levels in Islam. So you have ilmul yaqeen, knowledge of the book, right? You have ainul yaqeen, that knowledge being witnessed, right? To see the knowledge, right? And then you have haqqul yaqeen, which is called the experiential knowledge. So Mawlana Rumi, he learned this ilmul yaqeen from his father, from all these years that he was reading books and learning, right? But then when Muhaqqiq Tirmizi came in, he wanted to change that to ainul yaqeen, to witness these, right? That's why he did all of these things with him in terms of teaching him one-on-one, then sending him to Damascus to get to see these awliya, the master of grammar right there. He is the master of grammar in the world, go get it from him. He's the master of Quran, go get it from him. He's the master of hadith, go get it from him. So he saw each individual master of each science and took it directly from them. When Shams comes in, he said, no. Those are all still not real knowledge, because if you don't experience it, right? So, for example, do you guys have an Afghani restaurant in Cape Town? Probably don't.
No,
Yeah.
no, we don't.
So if I explain to you Qabuli Palau, right? Say, listen, Qabuli Palau is an amazing food from Afghanistan. So it's rice, and then we have raisins and carrots and things all over it, and there's lamb inside of it. Okay, that presents a good. Okay, that's what Qabuli Palau looks like, right? Okay, this is what it is, and you can read it. I can send you an article on it. You can read it. That's ilmul yaqeen. You know it's true, right? You know how it's cooked. You know what all of it read it. But then I'll send you a menu of a restaurant. Now you're seeing wow, this is good, right? Right? Or you go to a restaurant and then it's set up there. It's like, whoa, that's Qabuli Palau. I heard about this thing. But it's different when you're eating it. That's haqqul yaqeen. You're experiencing this thing that you read and you saw. So what Shams told him, he said, all these things you read and you know, but if you don't experience it, right? You just have to, the mazza, the sweetness is not there. All these talks is not going to remain because there's no experience in it. And Islam is an experiential religion. So that's what he does. And it brings him into this, this experiential knowledge, haqqul yaqeen. And he transforms him from who he was before to who he became after. It is that flip of right side up.
And that's the source of the Divan Shamsi Tabriz.
So the books are divided. He has 5 books, Mawlana Rumi. The 3 famous one is the Fihi Ma Fihi, and then the Diwan Shams Tabriz, and the most famous one is the Masnawi. All books are written by Mawlana Rumi, but they're inspired by Shams Tabriz, obviously, because he's the one who instilled that experience in him, and through that experience, these word emerges out of Mawlana Rumi. So so Diwan Shams is actually, a lot of people, they think it's written by Shams Tabriz. It's not. It's actually written by Rumi. It's dedicated to Shams Tabriz, a diwan dedicated to my sheikh, to my master, Shamsuddin Tabriz. So that's why it's called Diwan Shams. So that's, depending on which edition you get, about 45,000 lines to up to like 50,000 lines of poetry dedicated to his teacher.
What is a divan?
The difference between a diwan and a masnawi is that they're both a form of poetry. A masnawi is a form of poems that each line rhymes, but the entire poem doesn't rhyme. But each line has to rhyme by itself. Got it? So, for example, the Masnawi of Rumi start with Bishna was nay chun hikayat mi konad, از جدایی ها شکایت می کند. You see, both the line ends the same. Now the next line is not می کند. It doesn't end like کز نیستان تا مرا ببریده اند در نفیرم مرد و زن نالیده اند. Got it? So each line rhymes by itself. As for the diwan, all of the line they have to rhyme.
Oh wow, okay.
That's the difference. The diwan is harder to write than the masnavi. Masnavi is easier to write because you don't have to rhyme all of the words of. So if you have like 30 lines, all 30 lines has to end with the like and or us or whatever word that the first line ends. They all have to end with the same rhyme. So that's the difference. Okay. So diwan is always the rhyming, and that's why mostly for songs they use the diwan because the song has to rhyme the whole song, right?
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's just a form.
It's a form of poetry, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why you have Diwan Ghalib, right? You have a Diwan of Ghalib, the poet. Diwan Attar Nishapuri, right? Diwan Hafiz Shirazi. You know, they all have their Diwan, you know, which is that poetry style.
Uh-huh. And you also have other Masnavis as well.
Tons of Masnavi, but the when you say the Masnavi, it's just everybody knows this. You're talking about Rumi, yeah, which is one of his karamat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you were saying earlier, I mean, talking about the life of Rumi and the position that he was put in, and I mean, he was the head of Islamic knowledge for the Muslim empire as far as it reached. And one of the lines I do know is sell intelligence and buy bewilderment or buy wonder. And that was you know, as you were talking about that line just kept coming to me.
Yeah.
Do you know it in the Farsi?
Yeah. Ziraki befrush wa hayrani bikhar. Sell this ziraki is actually, you know, the real meaning is there are people, the English translation is actually pretty decent. But there are people who try to live a life as a salesman, right? As a salesman, they're like, hey, come on, this is good. Let's do this. I'm good. It's just like, you know, he's like, no, wait. Don't be a salesman. Don't live your life as a salesman. Why don't you become bewildered and let everybody comes and bet for you and they want to buy you instead of you selling yourself? Got it? Yeah. Because we are all enamored when somebody's bewildered. It's like everybody, whoa, what is he? Whoa, look at him. Instead of a salesman, hey, look at me. I have this new vest. Look at me. But then they will look at you. It's like, whoa, that's amazing. Look at this man, right?
Okay.
That's the whole point is like, you know, Rumi always, one of the things that he does is that know your value. Don't sell yourself cheap. If you know your value, he says that all of existence are your buyers. But the greatest buyer of you is Allah, because no one can outbid Allah, right? So don't try to be a salesman, try to sell yourself. Don't try to pull a fast one on people. Bewilderness, you know, Hayran is a station in spirituality where you get this station of bewilderness. It's just kind of like, whoa, like you know, like a lot of the people in the West, they trying to get to that station through drugs. So they do heroin and they do all these drugs because they want to experience that spirituality of Hayrani, you know, this station of bewilderness where there's just like, whoa, like they just, you know, when seeings and, you know, Rumi has this line in the Masnavi. He says, when hearing, talking, and seeing are mixed all in one. That's wilderness, whenever it just, you're just enamored and mesmerized as Allah's creation. And then everybody's mesmerized at you because you are mesmerized by Allah's creation. And that's when everybody comes to you and they'll say, whoa, look at this man, right? Ziraki bifrush wa hayrani bakhar. Sell your ziraki and purchase hayrani. There's two stations. One is the station of one is the station of ego. The other one is the station of the ruh, of the spirit.
And then, and bewilderment is a state of a station.
Yes, it's a station, of course, yeah.
There's another story, again, it came up when you were talking about how Rumi went to Damascus to learn from the sheikh of grammar. And I remember being told a story where there were two men in a boat, and one was a grammarian, and he asked the other one, do you something about grammar? And the man replies, no, I don't know grammar. And he said, well, then you've wasted half of your life.
Yeah.
And a storm comes.
Famous story, yeah.
And the man asks the grammarian, he's like, do you know how to swim?
Yeah.
And the grammarian says no. And he said, well, then you've wasted all of your life.
Yeah.
And he jumps into the water and swims.
Yeah.
Where is that from?
That's in the Masnavi of Rumi. You want me to read it for you?
Oh, please.
The story of grammarian and the sailor is, I think a lot of people can benefit from it because it's really about our lives, about human being. And Rumi is trying to teach us a really amazing lesson. آن یکی نحوی به کشتی در نشست رو به کشتیبان نمود آن خودپرست. So Rumi says there was this grammarian, Nahwi, this person who learned Arabic grammar, the book of Nahu, because you have Sarf and you have Nahu. So he only knew Nahu, right? So he comes on this boat, and then he looks at this sailor who's an Ami, an ordinary person, is not a scholar, not a learned person, and he goes, "Do you know grammar? You know Nahu? Any grammar? He said, "No, I don't know any grammar." گفت از نو هیچ دانی گفت لا گفت نیم عمر تو شد در فنا. He said, you don't know any grammar? He said, no. He said, well, what a waste. You have wasted half of your life. دل شکسته گشت کشتیبان ز تاب لیک خاموش آندم از جواب. Or another narration, لیک کرد خاموش آندم از جواب. So he says, Rumi says that at this point, the grammarian just broke the heart of the sailor. And this is the whole point of the story. Because a lot of people don't get this story. They think it's because that story is in other books as well. It's not just in Rumi. The what you mentioned, that part of the story is in quite a few books. A lot of people, I thought, has it in others. They have the story. But what Rumi does with the story, because a lot of the stories in the Masnavi is not original, but what he did, he took the story and then he did a 2.0 version of it. He just took it to another level. So Rumi said, the grammarian broke the heart of the sailor. But the secret of the sailor was that he didn't reply to him. He didn't say anything. Although his heart was broken. But here's, you have to understand, the sailor is a stronger man physically than the grammarian, because the grammarian looks like this, a seeker of knowledge, but he's arrogant because he just have enough knowledge to hate. He's not a scholar. He has a little bit of knowledge, and a little bit of knowledge is very dangerous. So, but Here, the secret of the story is that he doesn't answer him, he leaves it to Allah. Even though he's humiliated in front of everybody. Do you know grammar? No. Oh, you don't know grammar? You wasted half of your life with so much arrogance. The heart of the sailor is broken. He's humiliated, but he doesn't reply, doesn't say anything. Both kishti ra ba girdab fikar. And then God sees the heart of this man and sends this wind. And then the ship goes from the side to side and is about to sink. Gof kishtiban badan nahwi balan. Then he gets inspired to speak. And then he turns to the sailor and he says in a clear voice, Hich dani ashana kardan bigu. Do you know how to swim, my friend? In a beautiful way. Gof ne, ay khush jawab khubru. Now look how the tide turns, right? Pun intended. And the grammarian says, oh no, my handsome sailor friend. Now he became handsome. At the beginning, he looked down at him. He put him down. He humiliated him. Now, oh, my handsome and eloquent friend. Eloquent friend. I don't know how to swim. Right? Allah changed the situation because whoever becomes arrogant, Allah will break their back. And whoever humbles themselves, Allah will elevate them. This is the nature of the sunnah of Allah. That's how it works. He said, no, I don't know. Goft kull umrat ay nahwi fanas. He said, oh, my grammarian friend, I think you have wasted all your life. Zonke kishti gharq in girdab has, because this boat is about to sink in this ocean. Now, this is what we call ilm al-yaqeen. So the story starts with ilm al-yaqeen, that there's a grammarian and a sailor, right? That's the story that comes in. And then it becomes ayn al-yaqeen, when the storm comes, right? That's ayn al-yaqeen. He sees the storm. Oh, I don't know grammar. Oh my God, this, right? This boat is about to sink. Now, Rumi takes it to another level, to haqq al-yaqeen. And he says, Ma mi bayad nannahu anja badan. He said, you don't need grammar, my friend. You need annihilation. You don't need grammar. What is annihilation? Mahu. Annihilation here is trust in God. Tawakkaltu ala Allah. Gartu mahwi bi khatar dar abran. And if you become annihilated, dive into the water without any fear. آب دریا مرده را بر سر زند وربو از زنده ز دریا کی رهد. Because the nature of the ocean is that it sucks you down if you're alive until it kills you. That's the nature of the ocean. If you fall into it and you're alive, it will suck you down until it kills you. But if you're dead, it will honor you and bring you up to the surface. چون بمردی توز اوصاف بشر بحر اسرارت زند بر فرق سر. And Rumi comes into the story now and he says, oh my friend, if you die from these human qualities that drowns you in the ocean of your own regret, it is then that the ocean of your mysteries will elevate you and carry you on its head. And this is why when we take the dead, we carry them on our shoulders. We elevate them because it's their mysteries that comes out, right? And that's what the ocean does. When you die, it brings you up to the surface. All of the dead comes to the surface as a sign of honor for the dead, right? So this is why Sayyidina Umar said, "Mutu qabla an tamutu," right? It's a narrated as a hadith, but saying of the Sayyidina Umar as well, that die before you die. Die from human qualities, right? Die from these human qualities like arrogance and like, we have kibr and hasad and envy and all of these diseases that drowns us. And then Rumi says, he ends this poem with a couple of lines. He said, ای که خلقان را تو خر می‌خوانده ای. He says to the grammarian, he gives an advice to all those people who have enough knowledge to hate. He said, oh, advice for all of you guys who you thought that everyone in the creation was like a donkey because you knew a little bit of knowledge. این زمان چون خر در یخ مانده ای. How God had made you like a donkey yourself that is stuck on ice, which is like a really an amazing metaphor, because when a donkey, if a donkey is stuck on ice, it's helpless and it's funny and it's ugly. They can't move. And if they move, so he's saying that's what's going to happen to you if you call people donkey, because they don't know. Allah will make you a donkey on ice and make you even worse than a donkey. And then he ends it, it says, مرد نحوی را از آن در دوختیم تا شما را نحو محو آموختیم. He said, remember I told you the story of the grammarian and the sailor in order to show you the grammar of the heart. The grammar of the heart, my friend. Because you could be eloquent, but your heart could be ugly. But if the heart is in the right place, it doesn't matter what comes from it, because Allah is not looking for grammar. He's looking for the grammar of the hearts, that the heart is pure and is speaking to him.
And the heart is an ocean.
The heart is an ocean, of course, yeah.
And you're diving into that ocean.
You have to dive into that ocean, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Beautiful. There's one more thing that I really want to ask you, because it changed my life hearing this line. And I want to get your thoughts on it, or your commentary on it, which is that a student of Rumi came to him and asked him, what is fear? And he replied, non-acceptance of uncertainty. If you accept uncertainty, it becomes adventure. And I remember someone telling me that maybe 10 years ago. And it's just one of those things that whenever I'm afraid, that line comes to me. Do you know about it?
Yeah, that's, it's straightforward. I think that, one of the things that people fear death, those people who fear death is because of the uncertainty, because they don't know what happens next. But if you know what happens next, you don't have any fear. Like, that's how you remove the anxiety of death. If you know the journey, that is a beautiful journey post-life, and we all have to get ready for it and go through that. And it's not a dark journey. It's not an ugly journey. It's a journey to the Lord of power. So a lot of the stuff that we fear is because it's the unknown. And that's why the religion is about iqra, about reading and learning. So you're not in the dark. The more, when knowledge, in our tradition is light, and light removes darkness, and people have fear of darkness. And that's the nature of human being. If the light goes out at the middle of the night and you're sitting there, and even though there are other people in the home, everybody kind of like gets frantic for a moment. It's like, oh my God, it's so dark, because it's unknown. Like, okay, what's going to happen? So, but when you understand something and when you learn about it, it's like turning on the lights and seeing things, and then the journey of life, the journey to the hereafter, all of that would make sense. And that's what he's talking about. Is just if you don't know, it is fearful, right? But if you know, there's no fear, because lovers, they don't fear. That's one of the, if a lover is scared, that's not a lover. They don't fear. You have to be a lion to fall in love, and that's the station that they're trying to get you, to make you a lion of God, that you fall in love with Allah and you're like a lion. You're a sultan of the jungle. If you fear, how are you gonna, Saadi said, how are you gonna go to the bottom of the ocean? He said, Tarkilulu natawan gof ke darya khataras. He said, how could you abandon the lulu from the bottom of the ocean because of the fear of the ocean? Come on. I said, lovers don't fear no ocean, because if you want the pearl, you would dive in. You do the deep sea diving and you will go get the lulu. But That's the sad thing about the people who are not in love. They are the one who fear. But if you're in love, there's no fear with lovers.
Oh, you just reminded. I was listening to a Koali a couple of weeks ago, and one of the lines is, "Not every diver that dives into the ocean comes out with the pearl of knowledge."
Yeah, because they're not deep sea divers. They're surface divers. They still have fear.
Mm.
The fearless one are the people who have no fear, not the fearless. Fearless is not a good translation, but the people who have no fear because they're not afraid. They're not cowards. Because shuja'a is a moral virtue in Islam. You know, that the bravery is a moral virtue. So you got to be brave when it comes to love, and you can't be afraid. And if you don't have the heart of the Persian, they say, if you don't have the heart of the lion, don't fall in love.
Oh, I'll say that. Say that.
Yeah, if you don't have the heart of the lion, don't fall in love. Dil sher nadori, safar ishq makon. If you don't have the heart of the lion, don't fall in love.
Oh, I'm gonna memorize that.
Inshallah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the New Nomos podcast. Dil sher nadari, safar ishq nakon. That's my main takeaway from this episode. Have a blessed Ramadan. Ramadan Kareem. Thank you.